And I think the problem is that it reminded Canadians one of the reasons why they voted for Mark Carney, which is they were afraid that this guy was a mini Donald Trump, using the same kind of tactics, the same kind of language, the same kind of rhetoric, and now he wants, like Donald Trump, to put his political opponents in jail. And he's calling the police a liberal police. That's what he's doing.
Well, folks, it's looking like Pierre Poilievre's comments over the past few days have really kicked the hornet's nest, and now the media is in a bit of a frenzy. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at in today's video, as well as a few other stories that took place throughout the week, like Carney's bail reform, whether it's going to work or not. But before we get into that, I just want to thank you all for the support over the past week. I know it's been very slow on videos. As I mentioned, I've just returned back to work, and unfortunately, I don't do videos full time as of yet, maybe one day. But if you guys could, like, comment, and subscribe, always helps the channel. And with that out of the way, let's dive into the news. So, I'm sure many of you have heard Pierre Poilievre is ruffling some feathers with his latest interview on Northern Perspective, since the mainstream media is focusing on one aspect from the interview, which is Pierre's comments on the RCMP, Justin Trudeau, the Liberal scandals, and potential jail time that should be served or should be being served by Justin Trudeau. And they're going as far as having these panels on it. They're talking about him being MAGA, him being just like Trump, and going as far as questioning his mental health, saying, why is he doing this? And even suggesting that the Conservative Party should get the RCMP to do wellness checks on him.
In this case, the opposition leader is going a bit too far.
Why now? What's the point of resuscitating that file now? Mr. Trudeau is gone. He's no longer in the public eye, except maybe for the Daily Mail, photographing him with Katy Perry.
Let's not talk about that, please.
Yeah.
So I guess the question, sort of playing off of what Abigail said, why bring out this political grenade right now?
So I've been racking my brain to try to think about what the strategy was here, and there doesn't always have to be a strategy.
Sabrina, it feels like this is a gift to the Liberals when there are so many other things to hold them to account on.
Like, maybe Pierre should call the RCMP for a wellness check, or maybe the Conservative Party should call the RCMP for a wellness check on Pierre. This is so far from being relevant or something that people are talking about. It is almost a bizarre break with reality. Like, is he actually okay?
So now the mainstream media is going as far as questioning Pierre's mental state. And it's not just the liberal media, that's also conservatives in that mashup there, saying that they don't quite understand why Pierre's even talking about this. When if they even watched the interview or that section of the interview, they would know that he was responding to a question in regards to the past 10 years, there's been a lot of scandals. And if the conservatives had an individual who was responsible for a scandal, what would happen? Pierre said, well, they would no longer be in the party unless they could prove that it was an actual genuine mistake. And then he referenced, well, majority of the scandals that happen in the Liberal government, there should have been jail time, which is why he went into that little preamble about the RCMP, Justin Trudeau, jail, and all that. And when you try to give the mainstream media some proof, they bend over backwards to protect the Liberals and go as far as, again, equating this to MAGA Republican stuff, saying that it's far right, to actually question why nothing was actually done. I mean, take a look at this interaction between Peter MacKay and David Cochrane.
And the allegations is that the RCMP covered up crimes by the Trudeau government and called their leadership despicable. Commissioner Drouin was deputy commissioner at the time. Peter MacKay, the opposition leader, going after the National Police Force like that, calling them despicable and accusing them of covering up a crime. What do you make of that? You're a former prosecutor, right? Like, you have to work with these police officers. I don't know if this is helpful or not. What's your take?
Well, you do have to work with the police, and certainly Pierre Poilievre should consider taking up the offer of the commissioner. I think getting back, though, to the central issue of the allegation, I can tell you, David, having been a prosecutor, if any politician, if a local mayor had called me up and said, hey, my brother-in-law was charged last night with, I would say, stop right there. You're about to commit a criminal offense. And so arguably there is a discussion to be had about what occurred in the SNC-Lavalin case and the interference. Jody Wilson-Raybould wrote quite extensively about that in her book.
Well, she said it was inappropriate but not illegal. She said it was inappropriate but not illegal. And I just don't know what evidence exists that despicable, to use that word, RCMP leadership covered up for the Prime Minister. I mean, this is a big claim for the opposition leader to make.
It is a big claim, but there is no evidence because a lot of that evidence would have to come from the individuals involved, including people who worked for Prime Minister Trudeau. But as I was saying, that's an interpretation of the law that we will probably never get to. But we do know certain facts that there was an effort to have the Attorney General of Canada reverse a decision taken by a regional, in this case a Quebec prosecutor, around a deferred prosecution agreement. I know a little bit about that particular legislation because we drafted it before we left office.
Yes.
And so that legislation specifically lays out any type of influence, calls, or coercion against a prosecutor. And in this case, it went through the Attorney General of Canada. So inappropriate is a broad word. Criminal is another, much more difficult standard to meet.
Sure.
But I think much of what Pierre Poilievre has said stems from that particular pass that was given to then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
But Andrew, the criticism wasn't in this clip, was not about the behavior of the Prime Minister's office. It was about a cover-up by the National Police Force, right? That's a different kind of allegation.
Well, this is, the drift further and further into the MAGA right.
Now, for Andrew to say that this is going further and further into the MAGA right is very disingenuous when we're looking at all the liberal scandals that took place. And for David Cochrane to jump all over Peter MacKay when he's suggesting Jody Wilson-Raybould's writings, who, again, she lost her job because of the whole SNC-Lavalin situation, is a little bit rich. But it didn't stop there, as I mentioned. Even on Vashi Kapellos' show, when she was questioning Andrew Scheer, he brought up the audio recordings from Jody Wilson-Raybould. And just take a look at this interaction.
But I have to move on to this one thing, if you don't mind, before I let you go, because the leader of your party made some comments in a podcast that I want to get your take on, because it's actually about policing. The podcast, I believe, was taped October 3rd, posted yesterday. He was referencing the RCMP's decision not to pursue criminal charges against Justin Trudeau or other people in the government over their involvement in the SNC scandal. Mr. Poilievre characterized the leadership of the RCMP as, quote, despicable when it comes to enforcing laws against the Liberal government, and accused them of covering up for Trudeau. Do you have proof of that?
Did you hear the taped audio between the Liberal Prime Minister's clerk of the Privy Council and former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould? Because I heard that audio recording, and I heard explicit and implicit threats to a justice minister to grant, if she did not grant a special deal to SNC-Lavalin. I believe that's a matter of public record, and so I certainly I don't agree with the idea that there was not an attempt to interfere in the justice minister's role as an independent officer of the court.
But that's not what I asked Mr. Scheer. You have a view that a crime was committed. The accusation from Mr. Poilievre, who in a matter of weeks or months could run an election and be Prime Minister, is that the RCMP leadership covered up for the Prime Minister. That's a very direct accusation about the leadership of our National Police Force. Do you have evidence of it?
Well, as I just pointed out, there's direct evidence of an attempt by the Prime Minister, a sitting Liberal Prime Minister, to interfere with the Attorney General's carrying out of her duties. That audio was released. I listened to it on I believe you probably have too, and that is what I would point to. That when the RCMP says, "Oh, there's no evidence of interference," it's like, well, sorry, what more do you need? There's other cases where the Justin Trudeau's illegal acceptance of a private holiday that the RCMP chose not to investigate. So there's a lot of examples where senior Liberals have been caught breaking the law or attempting, or at least what a reasonable person would say there's evidence that should be explored, and the RCMP chose not to.
Now, if you've never heard any of these recordings that Scheer was mentioning, don't worry, I'll be playing some of it. But the full thing is about just under 20 minutes. It's like 17 minutes long. And throughout the whole thing, she mentions interference multiple times, saying how the prime minister is interfering, or she's trying to protect him from interfering because he was trying to do something unethical, especially as she was the attorney general at the time and the justice minister. So for the RCMP to then claim that there was no interference that they found, I'm not quite sure about that, but take a listen to this.
Right. So I'm confident in where I'm at, and my views on SNC and the DPA haven't changed. This is a constitutional principle of prosecutorial independence that, Michael, I have to say, including this conversation, previous conversations that I've had with the Prime Minister and many other people around it, it's entirely inappropriate, and it is political interference. And the Prime Minister obviously can talk to whomever he wants, but what I am trying to do is to protect him. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, so I'm not under any illusion how the Prime Minister has and gets things that he wants, and I'm just stuck doing the best job that I can, because I can't act in a manner, and the prosecution can't act in a manner that is not objective, that isn't independent. I can't act in a partisan way, and it can't be politically motivated. But what I am confident of is that I've given the Prime Minister my best advice to protect him and to protect the constitutional principle of prosecutorial independence. Well, I feel that I'm giving him my best advice, and if he doesn't accept that advice, then it's his prerogative to do what he wants. But I am trying to protect the Prime Minister from political interference, or perceived or otherwise. It's not that they're not lawful. The perception and what will happen is it will be deemed political interference.
So there you have it. The former Liberal Minister of Justice and Attorney General clearly stating multiple times the word interference, and how she's trying to protect Justin Trudeau from interfering, or protect him from the perception of interfering in this whole scandal. Yet the other day at the press conference, the RCMP head said, oh, well, SNC-Lavalin has been put to bed, it's been put to rest, we didn't find any interference.
Commissioner, in a recent interview, the leader of the opposition called the leadership of the RCMP despicable when it comes to enforcing laws against the Liberal government, and accused your officers of covering up for former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in the SNC-Lavalin affair. What's your response to Pierre Poilievre's comments, and have you ever faced political pressure from the government to not pursue charges?
So I think we've talked about SNC-Lavalin quite a lot under the previous government, and I think it was clear that there's no interference. I don't take any orders from any political individual. And as far as his comment with regards to senior management, I would invite Mr. Poilievre to meet with us and to meet with the people who run this great organization, 32,000 strong.
So he claims that there was no interference, yet as we know, they never even interviewed Justin when the scandal was happening or any time around there. When you have a crime and there's somebody who's being accused of something, or they're a suspect, which he was suspect numero uno, you do an investigation, you interview them, you try to get information, but that never took place. And even the Liberal Party tried to block all this. When the Conservatives back in 2023 initially tried to get the RCMP in, which they did, to a committee, the Liberals immediately shut it down within 8 minutes. And this is when we started to see the Conservatives do more social media posts about how their committee hearings were going, because the NDP and the Bloc at the time voted with the Liberals to end that meeting.
Usually, a message is sent out 48 hours ahead for any change to schedule, any invitations. I think this was terribly last minute. The fact that you were already discussing the appearance of the RCMP at that time, and perhaps the clerk would be able to confirm that is the case. They were invited Wednesday morning, it seems, to appear before us today. This had not been discussed whatsoever by the committee. So based on this reasoning, I would like to adjourn the meeting.
Well, Chair, that's not how these meetings are conducted. You read your remarks. She interrupted you.
It's not.
The witnesses were to give.
I hear what he has to say.
The witnesses were to give testimony, and now we have government members looking to shut down a hearing on a very serious matter with respect to a criminal investigation into the Prime Minister, and we have the Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police at the table. This is unacceptable.
She moved the motion. The motion is not debatable, so we're going to have to go to the vote.
Yeas 7, nays 3.
Okay, thank you. The vote has passed. With apologies to the Commissioner and the Staff Sergeant, this meeting is adjourned.
So we're here in the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics. We literally have the Commissioner for the RCMP in the room. We have a Staff Sergeant from the RCMP in the room. And we have these Liberals right there. The Liberal Vice Chair, Mona Fortier, just moved to adjourn the committee. These Liberals voted to shut it down. Mike Callaway, Parn Baines, hand them off, Iker Khaled, Mona Fortier. That's absolutely unacceptable. Look at them. They're very proud to cover up the corruption of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And so when we have the Commissioner of the RCMP here to answer questions, and we have the cover-up coalition do what they do, and they adjourn the meeting before the Commissioner even read his statement. And so I can tell you that we came here to work, meeting notice was given, and they are walking out of the room. They're running with their tail between their legs because they're trying to protect a Prime Minister who refused to release information that the RCMP had requested, hiding behind cabinet confidence. Now, the purpose of cabinet confidence, of course, is so that ministers are free to discuss decisions and the details of the discussions aren't released to the media. But what they've used the cabinet confidence provisions for in this case is to conceal information from the RCMP to prevent them from being able to fully investigate the obstruction of justice charges that they were looking at the time. And so it's shocking to find ourselves in a room where in just moments ago these Liberals shut down the hearing. And so we had the Commissioner of the RCMP. He was right there just a moment ago. And that's what transparency and accountability looks like after 8 years of Justin Trudeau.
Well, folks, there you have it. Just like the RCMP stated, no interference when it came to SNC-Lavalin. These committee hearings, totally normal that they want to shut it down immediately because they didn't get enough notice that they were switching topics to something maybe more important than TikTok at the time. But no interference whatsoever. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get to the bail reform like I wanted to. There's a lot to go over there, a lot of good clips, a lot of questionable ones. The CBC in particular, bringing on specific people targeting none other than the Conservatives. What do you expect? So I think I'm going to do a follow-up video on that. But as always, let me know what you guys think about this one in the comment section below. If you can, like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.